Greetings, Earthlings! Today we are back with Kings Island in Minecraft, and that is right, we are back. Hopefully, if I did my job right, this video will not be 4 months apart after the last one. We're trying to get sort of on a better schedule, because, guys, it pretty much always works out that during the summer we're able to upload all the time. I mean, this year was a little, too much, because we, normally have vacation and stuff that couldn't happen. But then, it's always that during the fall, when school starts up and we have fall sports and all that jazz, we just can't record and upload as often, so we're terribly sorry about that. But now that we're back into the second semester and everything is a little bit more calm, we're hopefully able to get videos up for you guys at a slightly more regular schedule. And today we are going to be continuing our track into Action Zone, heading off towards the
track. Get it?
Because it's roller coaster. But yeah, we're going off into the direction of the Bat, and we're also going to be passing up Timberwolf, the little amphitheater that's back here, all that jazz. We're also going to be doing Drop Tower, and basically this general, other third section of Action Zone. But anyways, guys, thank you for sticking with us, and we will see you after the actually, wait, there's a voiceover now. So we'll see you during the time-lapse. Alright, so we are back in the time-lapse. So this episode, you can see we're starting off by building Drop Tower and kind of expanding on this area. So while I'm building Drop Tower, Alec, I think you're kind of just doing some things over here and building that little plaza down there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just had to fix some minor issues after we moved Chicken Shack a little bit over, but other than that, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, and then with Drop Tower, we actually use chains to hold up, the little cables that actually pull up the car with the people on it. So originally, when they added chains into Minecraft, I was kind of confused. I was like, when would we ever use those? But it actually worked out really well there. And then you can see more detail being added to the actual, roofed queue for Drop Tower, including that little target thing that's on the roof. Don't really know why that's there. And then we're kind of just adding some more detail here, building more buildings over here with the plaza. And then I'm actually measuring right now where the little sign is that actually says Drop Tower, Stream Zone, all that stuff. And then moving on from there into actually building the little operator booths for Drop Tower. So you'll see me building the bigger one, and then there's two little ones off to the side to make sure everything's nice and secure. They kind of got the backup areas. And then going off of there, I start to then build the actual lights that show up to actually illuminate the whole tower. And then while this is happening, Alec, I think you just pretty much finished up all of the little...
The plaza, yeah, we realized that it's actually, the roof goes up, not flat, so that was kind of annoying, especially at the angle it was, but once again, not that bad.
And then over here, we're kind of transitioning into Timberwolf. So over here, I'm kind of just building this pathway to kind of connect Timberwolf into the area where Congo Falls is. And Alec, you're kind of measuring all that out, right, for Timberwolf?
Yeah, just measuring the base layer out of all the seating.
But yeah, then we ended up, after the actual layout was done, we ended up having to delete a bunch of land, because Timberwolf obviously goes down so that you can see over the people in front of you. So we had to terraform all of that and kind of figure out the slope that we needed, which almost perfectly lined up with the amount of seating sections there are. So we basically had in between each section of seats where there's a little pathway, that's where it actually changes levels. So it actually lined up almost perfectly. So the seats were kind of frustrating, but once we figured out how to do it, it was just a lot of time and effort to actually place them all down. So it was a little confusing at first, but once we got it going, it wasn't that bad. And then there's these little sections in here where there's actually, in the middle of the seating sections, there's little tiny pathways, as well as, just some other details here and there that we had to do. And then kind of moving on over here, we're slightly terraforming, getting ready for the next area, as well as up behind the actual seats where there's these little trees and this small hill that kind of separates it from Congo Falls. And then the little entrances on both sides where there's little concrete walls to hold back the dirt. And then kind of transitioning over here into the actual stage being built, which this was ridiculously hard. It was basically where we just were getting measurements that were all over the place. They weren't lining up, so we ended up having to measure from a different place to make sure that we were getting the same measurements. And it ended up working out pretty well in the end, but it took a while to actually get there. But then the slope to actually connect all of those points was pretty hard. It didn't line up right. It felt like it was uncentered, but it looked centered, and it didn't really make sense. So we went through several versions. You can see me right now actually building a different version of it behind it to try and see if we could do anything about it. But we ended up kind of just leaving it as is, maybe changing it a little bit, but we couldn't really think of anything better. But it doesn't look horrible, so we kind of just left it. It just sucks because Minecraft won't really let us do anything else that makes it more accurate. So we kind of just were like, you know what, this is as good as it's going to get. Moving on into the actual building of it, so we measured out all the different things. You kind of got these little two square sections and then the main stage. So the main stage actually has a higher roof than the other two, but then sticking out of the roof of the two little square sections, there's smaller supports that actually hold up the main roof. You can kind of see right here in that flat area. And then we've got these curtains around the back, and there's actually curtains all the way around. You can open them if you want to, but they most of the time just leave them closed. But the ones in the front obviously do get opened when you're using the stage, so we kind of built them at an angle, like as if they're being held open at the bottom. And then we went on to these details where you can see I built a rack at the top where there's speakers hanging down, and then I built the drum set, and then I built a keyboard, and then a bunch of those mic stands, which are mainly just there for the actual performers and everything, obviously. And then moving on over here into these little pathways that go down here. So, you know, just kind of transitioning off into the next section, because at this point, Timberwolf is basically completely done. Just doing some finishing touches before we move on into the next area. Then moving on over into this next area, you can see we're starting to build these little maintenance buildings or warehouses. Honestly, not really sure what they're there for, but, you know, they're employee-only areas, obviously. So here's some just rough terraforming I'm doing to make sure that we have access to where the buildings are. And it was actually really frustrating building these buildings because of the fact that this building, especially the long one, had 3 different wall colors. I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, and with Minecraft, obviously, if you have one block in a corner and a different block in the next block next to it, it's not gonna look right, so we kind of just had to adjust and adapt with the
corners are always weird in Minecraft.
Yeah.
So over here on the left, I'm actually building Blackout, the little haunted house.
And yeah, I'm building just some minor pathways separating the roads. They're kind of frustrating, just with the angle, but everything is, so
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
new?
And then here is Skyflyer, which was actually pretty fun to build, if I'm being honest. At first, it seemed like it was going to be a hassle, but it honestly turned out really easy. The only thing that ended up being a problem later is I realized that I accidentally measured the right side of it in the wrong place. So later, we ended up having to, like, redo the whole thing. But the good thing is that I only have to do half of it, because I figured out that because of the angle that it's at and everything, I can literally just copy it, flip it, and paste it to the other side. Easy. Done. So I built the main supports, like the 3 supports out of andesite walls, and then I put iron bars in the middle as the connectors because they're actually thinner than the actual main spine of the arch. And then you can see that turning around here, I'm starting to build the actual spikes that pull you up. So these, same thing, same exact thing, just using the spine as andesite walls and iron bars in the middle, and then one of them copy and paste it to the other side. Then here's the actual things you swing from, pretty self-explanatory, and then moving on into the ground.
Yeah, I think this is where we had the biggest issues with Skyflyer. Heard a lot of moans and groans from Max, understandably.
Yeah, it was definitely
it was not lining up too well, but in the end, as always, we came through. Right here, we're building this little store right there. Not too much, but
yeah, it's pretty fast, but you know, I think it turned out really well, though. Here you can see me building the actual circles where the people stand and they get lifted off into the sky, and then the little, basically just laying out where everything goes down there.
Then you have little action zone bathrooms, remodeled with Banshee, obviously, but nothing really special there. Just some toilets.
Yeah, and the roof does look strange, but that is how it is in real life. It's got these kind of patchy, like light gray and dark gray spots, so we did build that accurately. Here you can see me doing the remodeling of Skyflyer after I realized I put it in the wrong spot, so just kind of redoing all that and then copy and pasting it to the other side. And then leveling everything out down to the ground level here. Building the area that you actually buy your tickets for Skyflyer, and as well as the area you actually get harnessed up, which I actually realized that they just remodeled this year. So originally I had it completely differently, and then I found one video that let me know that it actually did change this year. Otherwise I would have just built it wrong. So thank goodness for that one random YouTube video of some guy videoing Skyflyer. And then there you can see just kind of touching up a lot of areas with trees and greenery and just some finishing touches on that whole Skyflyer area. And then that kind of transitions us into this next area where I'm kind of just adding these pathways that kind of go towards the bat. So you can see that I'm just measuring it out here from a layout perspective, and then really rough terraforming here. It's obviously not going to stay this way for very long, just rough terraforming, but this is just how I'm getting the levels, like the idea of how all the land is going to change. And then I build this little bridge here, which that pathway from earlier connects to make it like, you know, a maintenance path that goes straight over the pathway that actually goes towards the bat. And then I'm just putting in a bunch of greenery here and some lampposts, which this section as a whole just got really hard because Google Earth Street View doesn't actually go this far into the park. But it's not horrible. It was just a little bit more frustrating. And then moving on into this little plaza area going towards the bat. And this area was honestly really annoying because watch this, okay? Watch this entire area just get removed. And that's how deep this terraforming goes because the bat is literally over like a valley in the middle of nowhere. I have no idea why they decided to build it where it is. I mean, it's kind of cool because it does go through the valley, but it's just kind of weird. But, you know, terraforming sucks, so that's kind of annoying for us. So we had some trouble with the hill there, so I ended up just kind of measuring support by support, going through the entire thing, and that's what all the bedrock lines are. Those are just supports, and they're pointing in the direction the supports come from. And I'm just kind of getting the layout from a top-down perspective because we couldn't really figure out the height, because with the terraforming, the height is going to be almost impossible to find out. So kind of just continuing with building the actual layout from an above perspective, you know, support at a time, just kind of going through. Then the turnaround kind of looked funky, so I used a circle to kind of like fix it up a little bit, and then took that on over all the way to the brake run, and it made it look all nice. And then finally fixed this stuff over here where it wasn't lining up originally. And then we're just kind of doing some very early modifications to the station because we end up coming back to it a while later and finishing it up, but this is just what we were working on at the time slightly. And then what we ended up doing for the height of terraforming and everything is we knew the height of the brake run because it's almost the same level as the height of the plaza over there. And then from there, we ended up measuring on the supports how far down each individual support was, and then measuring the support to the ground. And then that's actually how we reverse engineered from the height of the ride to the height of the ground. So we actually built the ride first before we built the ground, and then built the ground based on how tall the supports were. So it sounds complicated, and it definitely was, and it kind of sucked, but I mean, it was definitely the best way we could think of to actually build this.
Yeah, I mean, like Max said, there wasn't really much else we could do. Obviously, you can't get the height of, well, the ground. We knew it changed a lot, but there wasn't much we could do, so a lot of it was a guesstimation, but we do agree that it turned out as close as it could possibly get.
Yeah, and then here what I'm doing now is I'm doing the same thing we did over there, but a little bit differently. So instead of doing it all at once, right now I'm just measuring the height of everything, of the actual ride, and then I go back later and measure the height of the supports and do everything kind of like in a different layered approach. So over here, I'm actually figuring out the slope of both the lift hill you just saw me do and the actual drop here, which, you know, was pretty easy, but it was kind of frustrating. Here I'm using the blue lines to actually figure out the height, so you can see where some of the changes in terraforming heights actually will be. And then from there, I start building the actual supports. So, you know, to the height of the blue that I was talking about earlier, and then the grass just kind of jumps up to where the blue is. This stuff, the actual lift hill supports, were kind of annoying just because they had more detail, but it wasn't horrible. And then here, I'm actually getting into the terraforming portion of everything, where I'm actually connecting the land to the levels that we had discussed earlier, where the supports connect to. And honestly, the terraforming wasn't really hard. It was just very time-consuming, and it was really frustrating. But I think it turned out pretty well, if I'm being honest. And then moving on down here, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, there was just some, well, it was hard to get under the station, obviously because Google Earth has a difficulty with getting under objects, but there was just a little sewer and stream under there. Some random little objects in the pathway going over here, with the big sewer entrance on Banshee's side.
Yeah,
So
originally we were just going to have that little river or whatever kind of end after it got into the trees because we couldn't tell where it actually went to because the trees were in the way. But we ended up realizing later that there actually was a little end to that little pathway where there's like a big sewer entrance. So we built it all the way over there, so it should be pretty accurate. Then this was freaking frustrating. All of the supports for the station was ridiculous because there's like almost no pictures or videos of the station. So we ended up having just to look at POVs at different angles for the inside of it. And then luckily somebody did actually upload a video on YouTube of them walking through the queue that helped us figure out how the actual supports from the top go straight through the floor, and then that's the same supports that hold the actual entire station up. So it ended up being pretty easy once we figured out how to do it, but the process was insanely hard, and it sucks, and I really wish there was more information out there about the actual station. Then, just lots and lots of trees and tall grass and flowers with bone meal and building some more pathways. Just, you know, lightening up the area, making it all a little bit more lively with greenery and stuff. Honestly, I'm really proud of how it turned out. I'm really happy with it, and yeah, that was mainly obviously the biggest portion of the episode, but overall, the entire thing was just really good. Thank you for watching. Alright guys, welcome back. This is the end of the episode. So just like always, there is going to be another POV comparison for the bat, so we're going to be showing that right now, so we will see you after that POV. Alright, welcome back. Let us know what you think. How accurate was it? And also, guys, I just want to ask you this, okay? From your personal opinion, what would you rather have us build next episode? Orion or Banshee? Because Banshee would make sense because we're already in Action Zone and we're kind of going around completing it. But literally during the process of recording this episode, they did update Google Earth for the flat images, and now we have Orion in there. So we can actually pretty closely get Orion built. So would you like to see that right away, or have us just finish up with Action Zone first and then kind of move on afterwards? But yeah, hopefully you guys did enjoy this episode, and thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, definitely make sure to let us know by leaving a like and subscribing. And without further ado, we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.